Hey TD Superheroes, I'm Alejandro Perez, your sidekick, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at data types and variables. Data types are ways to be able to store data in your code, and Python can understand several types. We have numbers, strings, lists, tuples, sets, and dictionaries. So let's take a look at some of the basics. So numbers, they are going to be integers, floating point numbers, and complex numbers. So a integer would be something like a whole number like this, like 10. So how do we know if this is exactly a integer or what type of data type it is? We can do a print function, and then we're going to put the command type, and then open close parentheses, and then close the parentheses for the print. So in the type, we can actually put a data typing here. So let's say 10. If we take this and run it, you'll see that it outputs class int. So int is the shorthand for integer, and that tells us that the number 10 is a integer type of data type. Then let's say we do 3.14 and we run this. We can see that this is a floating point number. So a float is a number that has a decimal point or a fractional number. So you can see that we have a float type of number when we use the rounded off number for pi. Then we can have something like complex numbers, and I just want to show you the complex number because it's a data type, but we probably won't be using much, if any, of the complex numbers, so you don't really need to understand how this complex number works, but you can see that if we run it, it has a complex data type. Then we have strings, and strings are a collection of characters, and they are inside of quotes. They can be single or double quotes. So when we did the hello world example in a previous lesson, when we run this, you can see that we have str. That's a string. And we can do it as double quotes, and it's going to give us the same result. It's going to tell us string. So we can do single or double quotes. Typically in Python, it is standard to use the single quotes, but there are situations where it's just easier to use the double quotes. So like, for example, if you were going to say hello world and you wanted to have the quotes inside of there, we can use the double quotes. So if we run this, you'll see that we're not printing that, we're actually just printing the example. Let's just print hello world now. There we go. So when we print that, we actually get the quotes because we're using the single quotes to encapsulate the double quotes, and it considers it part of the string. So characters are being able to use, and you can do a single character and it's still going to give us a string type. In other programming languages, when you use a single character, that can be a separate data type, but in Python we are using single characters. They are still strings. We can also include numbers, so hello 1, and it's going to interpret that still as a string as long as it's inside of quotes. Also, if we just have a number, it's still going to be a string because it's inside of quotes. Okay, then we have list. So with the list, it is a set of ordered objects that are, or not objects, but set of data that we are storing into a single unit. So with a list, you're going to open and close it in brackets, and then you would put information in there. So let's say 10. This is a list with one object in there. And you can see that we have a list there as the type, but we can also put multiple objects inside of a list. So that's why it's called a list, because we can store multiple data types inside of here. And they do not have to be the same data type. So here we can mix the data types. So we have numbers and we have a string, and we can see it still considers it a list. Okay, and then tuples are going to be inside of parentheses, and tuples they're similar to lists, but they're immutable. So with them being immutable, basically you can't change them after you've assigned them. You can't change the order, you can't change the items in the tuple or anything like that. So if you need something that doesn't change, a tuple is a good way to go. So if we did something like 5, 20, 50, and run this, we can see that we have a tuple as the type. And like I said, tuples are useful while we are trying to store information that is not needing to change. Also, with the tuple type, you can store different types of information like numbers or strings, and you can even put lists inside of the tuples and things like that. So that is good. And you can put lists inside of the list also. So the next thing is sets. So with the sets, the information is connected into curly brackets. So we need to open and close the curly brackets. And they are very similar to the list and tuples because we can hold different information. So if we run this, we can see that it considers it a set. The way that this is different from a list or a tuple is that with this, they are unordered compared to a list that is an ordered list. That just means that an ordered list goes 0, 1, 2, and it gives us an index number for each item. With a set, they are unordered, so you have the items in here, but they don't have a necessary order that they are read in from. And then finally we have dictionaries. So dictionaries are a collection of key value pairs. So there's a key and a value. And if we want to do a dictionary, they're going to look pretty similar to a set because we're going to open and close with curly brackets. But each value is going to be a key with a value. Oops. Yeah. And I actually messed this up. This should be a colon like that. So that would be a kind of dictionary. So we can see that that data type is a dictionary. And if we wanted to add more items, we can say key 01. Oops, again, we need a colon, and then value 01. And it still reads that as a dictionary. So these are the different data types. We're going to go into kind of specifics of each one in future lessons, but I wanted to give you guys an introduction to that. Now let's take a look at variables. So a variable is going to be something that we assign as a placeholder for a data type. So let's say we had a equals 34. So if we run this, we can see that it reads it as an expression here. It's giving us the variable a, and it's equal to 34. So if we wanted to print that value, we can say print A, and we get the value 34. So we could say B equals 3.14. So we can do A plus B. So we have two variables, they are storing information, and we can run it together there. You can also say C equals A plus B. So when we run this, oops, we need to put C there, we get the value that we got with the C value, adding A and B. So if we change one of these here and run it, we get a updated value for C, even though we didn't change anything on C. So that's kind of the power of variables. They can store any data type as well. So you can store lists, you can store strings, numbers, dictionaries, anything you want that is a data type, you can store it inside of a variable. You can also, when you're working with Maya, you'll see, let's put A. So we did talk about the Maya library already. So let's import maya.cmds as MC. Let's create a polysphere. So what you will see is that if we print the value of A, and we've set the variable A to this command from Maya, you'll get a list of strings, and one is the name, so we can see the name of the object here, and then the other one is the name of the shape node. So if we were to look at the shape node, it is polysphere 1 right here. So it's giving us the transform and the shape node as a list of items, so we can actually access those items. We haven't really kind of covered how we haven't really covered how lists work. So I want to give you guys a little bit of a preview, but like if you just wanted to access the name of the object, you can put an index level 0, so you have, because lists are ordered, you got 0, 1, and if you had more, continue 2, 3, 4. But the first item in the list always starts off at 0. Then, if we were to print A, you'll see that we only get the first item inside of that list, which is polysphere 2. So if we wanted to, let's say we can kind of test this, we could say name is equal to, and when we create a string, call it my sphere, and you'll see that when we print out A, we're actually going to get my sphere. So it is the name of the transform there. You can see that the shape node is still polysphere 1. So, but if we needed to access this object now, we can access it directly by its name. If you needed the shape node, basically you can just do 1 instead of 0. And now let's run this again. And for this new version that it was created, it creates polysphere 2. So that's kind of an example of how we're going to use variables in the future to be able to access content that we've created inside of Maya. Alright, I hope you guys found this useful. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!